Welcome back live to the Atheist Underground Psychological Emancipation Railway. We're going live. We'll answer some questions and answers if we can, and I wanted to clear up a few things about the show. Get a lot of comments on the hat. I'm going to go over this one more time, and hopefully not again. The Atheist Underground Psychological Emancipation Railway, moving your mind to places it was too stupid to go to itself, is virtual railroads. The underground is like the London Underground. That's what they call their subway system there, if you've never been out of the country. And we have a map here on the Facebook page of a subway system going around to different parts of the atheist movement. Reasonville, Secularia, Los Datos, means the facts in Spanish. Rational City, Agnostic Center, Atheist Town, Doubtington, Skepticsburg. Very clever, right? This is our concept. It's a virtual railway, and we move people around to different parts of the atheist movement, and we investigate parts of that movement when we get there at the stops. That's what the podcast is about. It's a virtual railway. I'm the engineer, and we're train shit. I also happen to like trains, all right? So for all of you folks who comment on the hat, thank you. It doesn't bother me for you to make fun of my hat if you're a troll. I will say, though, that it's not a toy train hat. It's a very real, actual hat, not a toy. You might think it's silly, and maybe it is, but honestly, I don't make fun of what you wear, troll. So why are you making fun of my clothes? Are you gonna make fun of me because I'm a short, bald man too? You gonna make fun of that? No. Haven't you been listening? It's a politically correct area. You don't make fun of the way people look. All right. So I don't make fun of your clothes, but I forget you don't have to wear clothes in your parents' basement, do you? Anyway, that's what this is about. And I'm gonna put this up there now for people who join late. So I don't have to talk about it again, all right? I wear the hat because I'm the conductor / engineer of a virtual railway called the Atheist Underground. And I got this cool train whistle on Amazon for like $15 or something. It's really cool.
Juan wanted to say thank you for what you do.
Thank you, man. No, thank you. And what we do it because of people like you. I've been getting it's very touching, and forgive me if I get emotional. I'm an old man. But the reason we do what we do is to reach folks who can't come out like I do and say that they're atheists. People are oppressed in America because of their atheism. People are oppressed by their own families. They're shunned. They're kicked out of their own families and friends groups and their communities simply because they lack a belief in a God. They're too logical, too serious minded in that way to believe what is obviously ancient Jewish fairy tales, that continue to move people's minds, and that's great. If you're a person and an adult who chooses religion for themselves, that's great for you. That's what it's there for. No one is trying to change Christians' minds. If you love that and you believe it, then that's your right. And I will die for your right. As an American, I will fight and die for your right to practice your idiot religion. Will you do the same for me, to not practice your idiot religion? I doubt it. So that's what that's about.
The lovely one says she thinks the hat's cool.
Thank you. The hat is cool. It's actually a high quality hat. It's not a piece of plastic or something. I love it. I love trains. Woo-hoo. I got some around the office here too.
And then we got another comment. Thank you for showcasing atheism.
You're welcome. Atheism needs showcasing. We are the last civil rights movement, and that may sound bombastic or it may sound like it's diminishing to other civil rights movements, people who have suffered more than atheists have in America in a physical way. But make no mistake, atheists get killed for being atheists around the world. Maybe not so much in America. In America, we just get ignored while the politicians pander to ridiculous Christians.
Lamb Wolf Shack says, how old were you when you became an atheist, and what was it that took you in that direction?
We'll be posting a video about that. I was about 16 when John Lennon was murdered, and I realized that most of my hardcore Christian friends told me he was going to go to hell because he was an atheist. And even as a Christian, I was a liberal Christian. We weren't biblical literalists, but it didn't make sense to me that a loving God would send a peace-loving person like John Lennon, who fought for love and peace his whole life, to hell. It didn't make any sense. So that sowed the seeds of doubt. I went on to college, and kind of typically, I think, like a lot of people in my position, moved away from God. So, because I was done with Christianity by then, but I figured maybe for a few more years that there was some sort of God or some sort of spiritual, life out there for me, and that kind of led me to, the kind of personal philosophies that college kids get when they're exploring their faith. systems, and you make a stop at Unitarianism, maybe, and then, sooner or later you just realize that this is all bunk, and there's no reason for me to try to justify the completely unjustifiable. So by the time I was out of college, I was a devout atheist.
Do you think the Bible was created to try and keep as many people law-abiding and moral as possible?
I think the Bible was edited that way over the years. Yeah, I think that it's been well shown that the people who put the Bible together left certain books out that could have easily been left in, and edited out the things that they didn't like. A lot of that has to do with female, disenfranchisement. The missing goddess is a big topic, Lilith and all of that have just kind of been disappeared from the culture. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that white Western leaders wanted to control society in a way that they thought was good for people, but they also knew would keep them in power. So yeah, of course, the Bible wasn't necessarily written for that, but it ended up being worked into that kind of purpose, for sure.
This one's open-ended. So, what are your political opinions?
I'm a social libertarian. All right, I'll let you sort that one out. We're not trying to keep it necessarily political here, but I'm disgusted by the last 4 years that we've all lived through, just on a humanitarian level. But I've got my own ideas, and some of them are somewhat conservative fiscally, probably. But socially, I'm a progressive. People have the right to live their lives the way they want to live their lives, and if you want to call yourself if you want to be a transgender person, that's fine with me. I don't want anyone telling me what to do. So yeah, I don't fit like a lot of people. I don't fit into one of the parties, and I don't think any political party in America really represents anybody anymore. And I think all of that needs to be rethought so that we have some political representation that reflects the majority of the new way of thinking.
You talk a lot about Christianity. What about Judaism and Islam? Are they any better?
Judaism has most post-Reform Jews that I know are atheists anyway. They've kind of let go of the heaven and hell concept, and they see themselves as being closer to God simply by being a better person and not a worse person. And I'm not an expert, so please don't take me up on all of this. But no, I do. The one thing I do blame Judaism for is the other two. Right? If it wasn't for Judaism, we wouldn't have Islam and we wouldn't have Christianity, and those are the ugly ones, and they're really only ugly because they've allowed the fundamentalists within their ranks to come to the fore and kind of warp what probably were decent ideas to begin with in a lot of ways. I'll back off of that a little bit. I don't think Muhammad was a good guy, but I think the kernel of truth behind most religions is to be good to people and try to live a good life, and there's nothing really wrong with that. So it's fundamentalism that's the problem, not particularly religions.
So Charleston just made a comment. It's very frustrating that my very Christian parents identify as Republicans.
Well, that's become the problem with the Republican Party, isn't it? It's become an identity politic thing, revolving mostly around Christian nationalism, which is absurd. This is a country founded on the idea that the government would stay out of religion and not make any laws respecting religion in any way. That's for the private citizen to deal with on his own. But today we have a Republican Party which has doubled down on the fact that their base is largely made up of evangelical Christians. And I can promise you that there were no evangelical Christians in the founders. None, not one. Nobody who was identified as a Christian. Some of them were mainline Protestant sectarians like Congregationalists, the Dutch Reform, the Episcopalians. These kind of progressive liberal Protestant sects are kind of gone now because it's all been distilled down into these evangelical idiots who take biblical literalism like it was some kind of law for everyone to live by, and if you don't want to do what I do, then you're going to hell. It's an embarrassment. The Republicans should be embarrassed about how they've attached themselves to evangelical Christianity. They used to have. I remember a day. I'm old enough to remember a day when the Republicans were decent people, and you could have a debate with a Republican without hating them. For being an ignorant Christian fundamentalist.
We got an ex-Muslim watching, and then they just wanted to say that there's one here, and then
congratulations on being an ex-Muslim. That's not easy. Good job there.
And then another one was the verse "lean not unto your own understanding" literally translates to "do not think for yourself." I'm not sure where their verse comes from.
Yeah, me neither. And I'm not Mr. I've read the Bible a couple of times, but I'm not Mr. Quote a Bible verse. But they're kind of right. They're pointing out that the Bible says to remain ignorant. Right. It's kind of what it says. Lean not on your own understanding. They don't want you to think logically because it all goes away if you think logically.
And then we don't have. Let's see. We're waiting for some more questions. So
That's all right.
They all popped up at once. That was weird. I think it's their connection.
I got other stuff to talk about if we're out of questions.
I live in America. The only consequence is hellfire. I'm not sure exactly. Oh, that's to somebody else. Sorry. What can you explain about the soul?
Well, the soul is a concept that people made up to explain away the feeling, the complexity of our own minds, and we all understand that when you die, there's a dead body still there, but the you is gone, and that idea that human beings have a soul, that's just a product of our psychological evolution and the complexity of our brains. I get the feeling, but there's no evidence that a soul exists. It's just to me, it's a way of describing personality. We have each of us has a spirit and not a ghost, but that life force that makes us unique. And people want to live forever, and so they needed a way that could happen. And clearly, your body doesn't live forever. So most societies came up with the notion of a soul, so that inner being can move on and to the afterlife or to another body if you're into resurrection or whatever it is. So soul can be framed up in a lot of different ways. Some people think that your soul inhabits an alien being, right? And when that alien being dies, your soul gets put into another one. We talk about that in the new podcast that's coming out soon.
Are there any of the religions you feel are cults?
The only difference between religions and cults are the leaders of the religions are dead, or the founders of the religions are dead. Cults generally have a leader who's still alive and who's actively in it for his own self-interest. So besides the size issue, it's hard to call something a cult when it gets to be, a 500 million people around the world following it, and has evolved over 1,000 years into different sects of a religion. But there's really no difference at all. No, I mean, one is just a bigger version of the other one.
Here's an interesting one from Mary. Mormons all seem like success and good people. Do you think they are happy people?
Maybe. I mean, religion has worked for some people. It's hard to say that the replacement of degenerate alcoholism with faith in Jesus isn't an improvement for some people. Religion has helped and worked for consenting adults for millennia. Otherwise, it really wouldn't still be going on. But to force it on other people is wrong. When you become an adult and you've studied and looked at the world and read, and you find a philosophy that you like, you find a religion that you like, good for you. It's a self-help mechanism. It is the opium of the masses, but it's also a way for people to center their lives in a way that maybe they couldn't do without that system. But the fact is that whether any of it's real or not is beside the point. If you have faith in Jesus and that saved your life, it wasn't Jesus that saved your life. It was you and your faith in the teachings and the writings and the whole religion of it. If that worked for you, then it worked for you, and that's great. But it isn't because it's real. It's because you used a psychological tool to get over whatever was wrong in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I think in this one we'll be able to hit Tatiana's and Lamb Wolfshack at the same time. As they said, do you believe we are energetic beings?
I'm an energetic being. Sometimes I have to take a pill to not be so energetic. I'm a little bit hyper. I've been accused of being, a little bit of a little blabbermouth many times. So yeah, we are energetic beings. We are infused with energy, and that energy is returned to the cosmos when we die.
What do you think would happen if religions never existed?
If religions never existed, I guess it's hard to imagine, because religion evolved naturally as early science. That was the way that they had to explain their world in the day when they didn't have scientific methods. So I often remark that if the scientific knowledge of today had been dropped on those early humans all at once, so that all of those questions were answered, they knew where the sun went at night, they knew where it went in the winter, and that it was coming back, and how long it would come back for. how many billions of years, then religion probably never would have evolved. I don't think there'd be any need for it. I'll say that.
I can't remember if we covered this already or we did a video on this. What do you think happens when you die? Did we cover that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just we'll have a video coming out.
Go to oblivion, just like before you were born. How anyone thinks it could be any different than that is beyond me. You have to believe an unbelievable fairy tale to think that there's something after you die. You have to take on faith that the old stories, the old wives' tales, are true. Otherwise, there's no reason to think anything other than when the lights go off, it's going to be just exactly like it was before they went on.
Here's a comment from I Like Turtles.
Me too.
With Christianity, all you got to ask is when is the earliest known version of the New Testament?
The whole New Testament put together as it is now, again, it's hard to say because people cut books out and they put books back in. None of it was written until about 40 years after Jesus was supposedly died. The Pauline letters predate the Gospels. The Gospels weren't written until about 70 years after Christ supposedly died. And I did want to bring this up because I'm not a biblical historian, but for the trolls who want to comment that I don't know what I'm talking about, that just shows that you don't know who you're talking to, because I've been on stage with Bart Ehrman. I've shared a stage with Robert Price. I am a friend of Richard Carrier. I have his phone in my phone, and I have extensively talked to and studied with the people who do study these things for a living. So to say that I don't know what I'm talking about when I make some of these claims is idiocy. Now, we're getting some of these videos out in like 60 seconds, and it's the thing, right, to get it in a minute for TikTok. And so I do misspeak. I'm trying to do this off the cuff. I am a trained actor. So, I'm able to speak pretty freely and pretty quickly and wrap it up in a minute, but it doesn't mean that everything I say is absolutely true. And a lot of the science people out there have taken me to task on some of my misinformation, which is entirely possible. I'm not perfect. And some of that stuff that I say is an exaggeration. I think I mentioned that the Gospels were written a century after Christ died. No. We know it's about 70 years for the Gospels and about 40 years for the Pauline letters. So that's still 40 years removed from the fact of the day when there was no way to record what happened 40 years earlier. So if anyone's ever played the telephone game as a kid, you know that to write about something 4 decades after it supposedly happened may as well be made up from whole cloth. And for all we know, it was.
Do you think that religious figures such as Jesus, Muhammad, etc., are real or made up?
I don't really have a strong opinion. We talked about this in one of the videos. Jesus probably never existed as he is portrayed in the Bible. He may have existed as a wandering preacher with no real huge impact, and then was, mythified later in life. He certainly wasn't supernatural. There's just no evidence for that. But I can't say that he didn't exist. And when I say that he probably didn't exist, I don't mean to say that he definitely didn't exist. So all the Christians are like, hey, he definitely 100% existed. You don't know that either. You know what I mean? So just admit you don't know. I'm willing to admit I don't know. Yes, I'm an arrogant, opinionated old bastard, but I'm absolutely willing to admit that I don't know everything, and there may have been a Jesus. They're starting to think that maybe Muhammad didn't exist. I have a feeling that he probably did, because that was a lot sooner, a lot more recent in history. Moses, on the other hand, has been now largely debunked as a mythological lawgiver who probably never existed at all, and even Christian and Jewish scholars are starting to admit that. I think if you look into it objectively.
So Mary has a question, and we've gotten this before, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you think of paganism or Wiccans, and then are spells possible as a follow-up?
Spells are certainly possible. I'll cast a spell right now. I will grow 6 inches and be 6'1" instead of 5'7", or 6'3" instead of 5. All right, I'll cast a spell all day long. It doesn't mean it's real. I love paganism. I love Wiccan. I love that those people respect nature and that their religious views come from the natural world around us. The supernatural part of it is bunk, obviously, but at least it's interesting and fun. Paganism's fabulous. Who wouldn't rather believe in Thor? There's recent movies about Thor, biopics, I hear, more than there are about the actual life of Jesus, and more popular at least. So, if that's evidence for Thor, then there you go. But we stand up for minority religions. Part of what we do in our fight here with the community group is not just to stand up for atheists, it's to stand up for minority religions, because all of those minority religions are beat and battered and bloodied and bludgeoned and beat down by Christian nationalists and blowhard idiot fundamentalists in this country. You can't be. We're in Wisconsin. We have a large Hmong community, HMONG, right? This is a Vietnamese South China religion that happens to have a large community in Wisconsin. Well, those people have to live around all of these Christian nationalists, and the odd Muslim in our area has to live around Christian nationalists. And the Sikhs, we have a large Sikh community, beautiful people, with a fabulous religion. Talk about a religion that makes a lot more sense than a lot of them. Look into Sikhism. That's a decent one, I'll tell you what. But the fact is that our fight is against Christian nationalism, and the fact that the majority Christians in this nation and the loudmouth evangelicals who are asserting their control or asserted their control are put down everybody else. And a lot of these minority religions don't speak up because at least they're allowed to live here in America, and in their own country they might have been killed or run out of town on a rail with an angry mob with the pitchforks and the spikes and the torches running them out of town. So they're happy to just be getting along, so they put up with it. I don't need to put up with it, all right? I've been a Christian. I was the kind of Christian who understood that, my faith wasn't based on biblical literalism, and nothing that happens in the Old Testament necessarily happened for real. So, the other minority religions are very, very important to us. We spend a lot of time studying some of them. The Yazidi who are getting crushed on a mountainside in Iran, or Iraq, excuse me, are a big one, and so we're here to stand up for religious minorities as well as atheists and agnostics, for sure.
And we have Wiccan members. I don't know if you want to...
We do have Wiccan members, and a lot of those Wiccan members enjoy they like Christians do. They enjoy the traditions, they enjoy the imagery, but they don't think that Thor is really the god of thunder, and that when it rains and thunders, it's Thor throwing lightning bolts around, and some of them do, and that's fine if they do. The fact is that and one of the things I learned doing the podcast back in episode 4, I want to say, was that pagan, old school pagan believers it still exist today and existed well into the 20th century on a larger scale than you might have imagined in Scandinavia and places where those religions were founded and more popular back in the day. And in fact, they had to hide their own existence from the Christian majority, and that's a form of oppression, just like any of it. So. I love pagans and I love Wiccans.
This one's sort of a two-parter. It's from user 4534837. What argument for theism do you have the hardest time answering? And then they give an example. For me, it's objective morality. So in some ways, that's too.
Oh, the whole morality thing. Come on, anyone who thinks that morality comes from a god is an idiot. Morality comes from the fact that we evolved as a species to have empathy. We have a complex brain. Sooner or later, warlike early man evolved a sense of empathy for his fellow man, and you realize that if you want to be treated well, you don't go treating other people like shit. There's no morality in the Bible. All you got to do is read it. Not even in the New Testament, where supposedly there is. Jesus rebuked his own mother so he could hang out with 12 sycophants and do what he wanted in a way that excluded females, including his own mother. So, yeah.
And other primates also have morality, so it's not like we're...
Yeah, it's not like it's exclusive to humanity. Animals have been shown to have... I'm not sure it's just primates. I mean,
no, it is beyond, yeah.
Yeah.
But for sure,
have been shown to have empathy, and that's where morality comes from. The whole objective morality thing is an argument that I don't really want to get into. I don't care that much about it. Is there objective morality? Probably not.
Do you want to cover what argument for theism do you have the hardest time answering?
Argument for theism?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's the fact that no one can really disprove a god. Although I want to say episode 5, we talked to Stephen Law, who claims that he can. He's a philosopher, and he gives you the evil god scenario, where you might say to a guy, so much good in the world that there must be a god. Did you shut us off?
No, we're still going. I got a phone call.
There's so much good in the world that shows that God must be good, right? You can turn that around and say, all right, well, I believe in an evil God, and why don't you think there could be an evil God whose intent is to make the whole world evil? Well, the fact is there's too much manifest good in the world to believe in an evil God. You can turn that right around. There's too much manifest evil in the world to believe that there's a God who's righteous and all loving and all good. It's just it doesn't make any sense.
I just want to say thank everyone for the comments. I'm going to jump to the bottom. So if you had a question and it hasn't been answered, go ahead and ask again. What advice would you give a new atheist?
Hey, man, be yourself. If you're going to get persecuted for it, then maybe you can't come out. But don't worry about it. There is community here for you. I think you'll find that there's a lot more atheists around you than you thought there were. So congratulations. You're using the brain God gave you. Sick. And you've come to the logical conclusion. So my advice to new atheists is to be confident in your abilities and live your life to the fullest and enjoy what you have now, because that's all we know we have. Why would you spend time preparing for an afterlife that you don't know is ever going to happen, when there are manifest problems right here on earth that we can solve with human solutions? Human beings, human solutions to human problems. Not faith in a God, not ruin this world because we don't need it, not litter and use up the resources because we're all waiting for God's kingdom. That's just unsustainable, unprovable bullshit. And when people start living their lives like today is the only day they have, then things will start getting better on this planet finally.
This question, I'm not sure about what it means exactly. It says, what do you think about the eternal return?
Don't know what that is.
I don't know if maybe that's, my assumption would be maybe it's reincarnation.
Eternal return, like you keep coming back? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they can explain. I don't want to talk about stuff I don't know. I know I do sometimes, but I really don't mean to. I try to admit it if I don't know something.
There's a theory going around that there are two gods. The evil one created Christianity.
Sounds like an Islamic fundamentalist talking. You are infidel. I don't listen to you.
So this one's a little sciencey. Will humans verge with AI and become half machines?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think people will probably. I know our buddy
Elon Musk.
Our buddy Jason Lawson was commenting that he thinks that his generation will miss out, but the next one, might get lucky enough to be able to upload, the electronic signals that make up your psyche.
Elon Musk claims 5 years to help repair brain injuries.
Well, I hope so. I don't got that much time left, man. Let's go, Elon.
Let's see. I lost. If you have a question, go ahead and post it now because I can't find the beginning. If you wanted to cover one.
Yeah, I don't know. We got onto so many questions. I did have some stuff to talk about, and largely
talk about the upcoming podcast.
Yeah, the podcast will drop tonight, and it is about alien origins theory. Right, we talked about that a little bit. The fascination with the fact that maybe aliens seeded life on Earth or affected life on Earth by granting them Promethean technology ahead of their time. And there's a lot of people that don't believe in God. I think there's a lot of atheists who will say that they don't believe in God, but kind of give credence to some of these other unsustainable ideas. And so we had some fun with it because I'm a science fiction fan. I love all that shit. Starting from 2001: A Space Odyssey right on through to AI, a great film. If you haven't seen AI, go back and watch that again. It's long and it's very Kubrickian, even though Spielberg finished it. But all that stuff is fascinating as a topic of discussion and entertainment, and TV and CGI is so good at making it all real now that it becomes fun. Prometheus, I love Ridley Scott, great film. But that's what we touch on in the next podcast, and we talk to a paleontologist. He's right here at Carthage College. We've had to do a lot of stuff virtually and on Skype and so forth because of COVID, which is kind of a drag. But we've been putting it together. They've been coming out a little slower, but this one's a fun one. There's not a lot. It's all pseudoscience. We get it. But the alien origins thing with the Chariots of the Gods and the guy who thought that when you see hieroglyphs that look like helicopters, and you can't believe that the Egyptians could have put those pyramids together the way they did without help from some kind of alien, or you see a plateau in Peru that looks like a landing strip from space. All this kind of coincidental, or what do they call it? Circumstantial. It's not really evidence, but it's like, what does that mean? Why? There's Japanese art that shows somebody with a really misshapen big head and giant eyes, and that must be a depiction of an alien. I'm not sure how simple-minded you have to be to not get your head around abstract art, but there you go. I mean, ancient aliens origin theory is the topic of the next podcast, and we don't really believe that any of that stuff happened because, again, there's no evidence for it, and scientists have a real grip on how life started on rocky planets. And for the trolls who are going to get on, that was another thing I want to bring up. The trolls are really they really get mad when you talk about what we know scientifically. No, science has yet to prove how. No, they really haven't. And you can listen to any of the top scientists talk about the fact that it's kind of over. There's details, that they haven't quite figured out, but we really understand now how life started from chemicals on rocky planets, and it happened on Mars, and it obviously happened on Earth. And with the size of the universe, there's no reason to think it hasn't happened on myriad other planets as well.
Hopefully Stevie's still here. He asked, why do people insist on placing their own shortcomings on some imaginary space fairy?
Their own shortcomings?
Yeah, why do they?
Are they going to blame their shortcomings on God?
Yeah, basically.
I guess. I don't know. People it tends to go the other way, I think, right? I mean, do a lot of people blame their shortcomings on God?
No, placing. It's just like, I think the idea being like placing as in like, I have a shortcoming, so I'm going to ask God to like, so instead of overcoming it themselves, they're placing it to, they're praying for it.
Again, they've been indoctrinated to believe that that'll work, and B, they're lazy. I mean, if you're going to take that route instead of actually trying to fix what's wrong with you, then you're just you're not a very thoughtful person. But again, if you've used a faith system to get over your drug addiction, who am I to say that that's not better? You know what I mean? It was like religion has worked, obviously, for adults. Just don't indoctrinate children to it before they have the ability to argue with you about it. You can't. To me, it's child abuse on a very fundamental level. When you take away a child's ability to think logically and rationalize using the facts for herself, you are abusing that child in a way that they might never get over. A person like me, brain was wired, to be able to get over the indoctrination that I was given, and I was lucky enough to be indoctrinated into liberal Protestant sects who didn't take the Bible literally. But people's minds are literally broken from oppressive, fear-based, hell-based religion. When you scare a 3-year-old with the fact that he's going to go to hell and burn for the rest of his life, and he has nightmares over that for years and years, and he doesn't have the mental capacity to think beyond it when he gets to be older, and it lingers and lives with her forever. That is a human rights violation on a fundamental level, and it angers me to no end. And that's part of our fight, is to get people to quit selling it to kids before they can argue with it. And this is part of the stupidest of the 10 Commandments is honor thy mother and father. Who's going to honor their mother and father if those people were serial murderers or degenerate drug pushers who addicted kids to drugs or sold them into sexual slavery? Who's going to honor that? The fact is that that's in there specifically to keep kids from denying the faith system that their parents have indoctrinated them into. If your parents raised you to be Jewish, you better not be Jewish. All right? That commandment is in there to protect the whole faith system from logical thinking by the next generation.
Here's an update on eternal return. It's a Nietzsche theory about the universe and everything reoccurring cycles.
I am not afraid to say that I am undereducated when it comes to philosophy. I never took philosophy. I took one philosophy class, but I can't speak to the writings of Nietzsche and Sartre and people like that. I leave that to people who actually studied it.
And then, can you recommend a good atheist podcast?
The Thinking Atheist is our buddy Seth Andrews, a personal friend of ours and a great human and humanitarian, and he's got the most popular atheist podcast on the planet. So it's hard for me not to recommend that one. We love the guy. There's a lot of good podcasts out there. I've been on a few of them. I've had a lot of these hosts on. Our podcast, again, is the Atheist Underground. You can find it on iTunes. Somebody asked about Spotify. We're going to look at it after this is over and try to get it on Spotify. I'm not really sure why it's not, but I'm not Mr. Computer. So we're doing our best. You can always just go straight to atheistunderground.com and get a link to any of the shows.
And then real quick, say hi to the lovely one again. She's back, she says.
She's so lovely.
And then this is from Joy. Have you feared death before?
I fear death now. I don't want to die. This is great. Of course I feared death. It doesn't mean that, I need to make up an afterlife. You just have to deal with the fact that one day you're going to be gone. Try to get done what you're going to get done right now, because it ain't going to last forever.
Trying So I jumped to the. Oh, we do have a question here. I guess we could do this one. I could ask you at least thoughts on Marxism.
Marxism?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think.
How do I even post?
I was raised with capitalism, and I think social capitalism is probably the best way to go. But it needs to be admitted that we are socialist by nature. The country was never just capitalist. That's not how it works. And unchecked capitalism has been shown to be completely and utterly destructive and only good for the greedy, and not even that good for the greedy sometimes. So, Marxism. Again, I'm not super well read on any of that crap. I think you're basically talking about a form of communism, and communism has been shown to be a less than perfect system. But I have to say that say what you want about the Chinese, but communism there has lasted and is on the verge of making China a superpower that eclipses our own. And the reason it's going to do that is because we've failed to educate our youth. The education system in America has eroded to the point of ridiculousness. Nobody gets taught anything anymore, and America's falling behind in all of the important categories. And that needs to be fixed. And a large part of why that is bad is because we rely on religion so heavily still in this country. We excuse religion to the point where some people are allowed not to give their kids medicine, and then they die. So I've seen it. I've fought it. The school system, even the public school system, is rife with religion and religious apologists and tolerance of overt religiosity in places where it should not be.
This is actually a question to the viewers. I know there's a way to put questions into this little. There's like a way to ask questions that are like so they line up. If anyone knows how to do that, please share it with everyone and share it with us, because our team's new to TikTok, and occasionally a question pops up there, and it's way easier to track them then. So if you know how to do that, post it in the comments.
Please do.
Thoughts on the Satanic Temple?
Love the Satanic Temple. Love Satanism. It's really about self-improvement and living the best life that you can be, and not being embarrassed about what feels good to you, as long as you don't hurt somebody else. The Satan part is largely metaphoric for most of the Satanists I know. They don't really believe that Satan is there, guiding their works and answering their prayers and appearing to them in a circle with a pentagram in it. Satanism is, I think, a reaction to overt Christianity in the country, and a really good one. The Satanists have hit a home run with their bit, because it's basically atheism with a gimmick, and it's a little bit easier for people to cling on to, I think, than just plain old atheism, which is having a hard time getting any traction. I think people are afraid of the word atheism. But yeah, no, Satanism is good shit, and I think that's episode we did Satanism a year ago, Christmas. Yeah, we can look at the.
I assume it's 6, but I don't think it is 6.
No, it's not 6 or 66 or 666 or 999. It's I don't know. I can look it up, but if you go to the website, you can find the one that's one of our more popular podcasts was the one on Satanism.
This one asks, do you support BLM?
Of course, I support BLM. It's the right thing to do. And there's a huge backlash against BLM, but the idea that we shouldn't support BLM because all lives matter and it's somehow inherently racist. The fact is that black people suffer in America. They're still put upon. They're still discriminated against. They're still looked down upon. All you have to do is look at the Confederate flag-waving hooligans that stormed the Capitol to know that white supremacy is alive and well. And anything we can do to normalize every culture in America is absolutely necessary. And the fact is that no one has suffered like black and brown Americans. And for that reason, we absolutely support BLM. We don't believe that the BLM is some organized mob that goes around purposely creating riots. Just like every movement, there's people in it who are not good and who do the wrong thing. But in general, Black Lives Matter is a continuation of a civil rights movement that never came to fruition. It was been cut short, underestimated, undervalued. It's just not complete. There's still a huge earning gap. There's still rampant, ridiculous racism, and I see it all the time. And I've learned a lot about my own, inadvertent racist ways, and it's just because of the way I was raised. Some of the thoughts that I had and the things that I do are actually racist, and I've been taught that. So BLM is absolutely necessary, and I hope it works. And the story that resonated with me was of a gal and she's a white chick I saw her on YouTube, and she was making this analogy. People who say all lives matter, it's the equivalent of this. You're at a big dinner table, and there's food for everybody, and it all goes around, and you get your food in a line. By the time it gets to the last guy, Joe, at the end of the table, there's no food left. And Joe says, well, I deserve food too. And somebody at the other end of the table says, we all deserve food, Joe. Well, that may be true, but Joe still doesn't have food. So to me, that resonated. That's really what Black Lives Matter is about. Yeah, all lives matter. They do matter. But to just say that and take that attitude doesn't change the fact that black people don't get a fair shake in this country.
Barbie Bad Boy wants to know, does that whistle actually work?
It comes with a little instruction manual about actual codes too. Like different blasts mean different things. Like maybe like stop the train, you're gonna run me over, or the switch is about to go. I don't know. I'm not that much of a train guy, but yeah, it absolutely works. And if I remember, I try to give a good comment a whistle if I remember. So anyone needs a whistle, just say so, and I'll give them a blast on my toy train whistle. That is kind of a toy, right? The hat, pretty real.
So we got a great question from our friend Ornery Atheist. Wants to know, what is the best way to fight religion in public schools?
Just fight it. Come out and call it out for being wrong. It's funny that you bring that up, because my hugest fight so far since being in this movement was with the Kenosha, Wisconsin school district, which is just full of religion. Most of the teachers are Christians. Most of them excuse religiosity when it comes up, and some of them actually put it on their classroom. My kid was in 4th grade when his teacher decided that she could wallpaper her room with the Bible, and she really thought she was doing the right thing by these kids by teaching them morality. Well, this is the equivalent of me being an atheist teacher and convincing all the Christian kids in the class that there is no God. If that happened, do you think those Christian parents would put up with that? Not for a friggin' second. So you can't be afraid, unless you're really going to suffer. You're going to lose your job, or someone's going to beat you or kill you for it. And there's reasons that atheists can't come out. And it's part of the reason that I do what I do, because I'm just not afraid of it. And if you think it hasn't affected my life, you're wrong. I've been discriminated against. I've not gotten jobs. My business has suffered because of it, but I don't care. I'm not willing to put up with Christian nationalism anymore. So if you have someone who is violating the Constitution by teaching Christianity in the public school classroom, you can go to the Freedom from Religion Foundation. It's ffrf.org. All right, and it's intake at ffrf.org. And you can email us too at atheistundergroundshow@gmail.com, and I will hook us up with FFRF. They will investigate it and write a letter if necessary, and they did in my case. They wrote a letter. The letter spurred a school-wide investigation. The school board is then forced to hire their own lawyers to look into this. It costs the school money. They hate that, and it brings unwanted attention. The news story picked it up. The news picked it up. We were on the Milwaukee News, and you can look that up. Just Google Kenosha Atheist Dad, and my story on the Milwaukee News from a few years back will come up. It's a fabulous 5-minute story, and thank you to Julia Fellow, the great reporter at the NBC outlet in Milwaukee, for doing that story. It was a great one for her and for us, and it embarrassed the teacher. It embarrassed and eventually the stuff came down. Now, especially if your kid's involved, I try to talk to the principal first, and get them to give their teachers the right guidance. In this case, the principal didn't care to do that and made excuses, and it stayed up for months and months and months and months. And I finally pulled the trigger, and I warned him. I said, this is what's going to happen when I do this. It's going to blow up in your face, and you're not going to like it. And everything that I said was going to happen came true. I'm lucky enough to be personally acquainted with Dan Barker and Annie Lori Gaylor and the staff at FFRF, so I do have a little more input there than normal people, but I can tell you that they're fabulous. They will answer your complaint, and if it's a non-starter, they'll tell you that, and maybe that it just got under the radar and it doesn't quite meet the criterion of what they can actually win, and that'll happen. Like, you're not going to get anyone to take God Bless America off the school wall, because that's our fucking motto. It's stupid, It shouldn't be the motto, but it is. So something like that is not going to get. But this teacher had Bible verses, advertisements for Christian concerts. It went on and on, symbolism, and she just brought it up too much. And the class is not like it used to be. It used to be that everybody in the class was a Christian, or at least a lapsed Christian from a family that didn't go to church, but still identified as Christian and believed in God. And maybe there was a Jewish kid in the back who suffered in silence. But Judaism always gets kind of a pat on the back from Christians in America, like a crazy uncle that we kind of have to protect. But that's not like that nowadays. You're liable to have a Sikh, a Muslim, 2 pagans, a Wiccan, 4 atheists, a Jew, a Buddhist or 2, and a bunch of Christians. And it's not like it was in the old days. So for any teacher to bring up religion in the public school is wrong on a scale that I cannot even tell you about. Unless, of course, it's like a high school with a religious studies class, that's different. But kids look up to teachers. And when your 4th grade or 5th grade teacher says there's a God and says that Christianity is real, that holds a lot of weight with a little kid. That they're taught to respect their teachers. And a lot of parents don't look at it that deeply. And I'm here to tell you that when you do, you're going to be shocked. So if you see religiosity in your school, do what you got to do. And if you can't do it, you reach out to me and I'll do it for you.
So Figure Out Me wanted to say thanks for being here. Being atheist is so hard, especially in my area.
Yes, thank you. It's easy for me. Not super easy, but it's easy for me, and I get that, and that's why I do it. I'm here for you, because I know that there's people who suffer and cannot come out for fear of a lot of things, losing their job, losing their family, losing their friends, losing their loved ones. I know it's tough in America, and it's embarrassing that it's tough in America. Again, the first great secular nation, and no atheist has any voice. There's barely any atheist politicians who could come out and say they're atheist. I'm sure most of them are. The more highly educated you are, the less likely you are to believe in God or be religious. But all of these people understand. And what went on with the Trumpy idiots in the country is just proof that if you're silly enough to believe that crap, you'll believe anything. You'll believe any lie that anyone in a position of authority tells you. And that is not intelligence, and that is not the way to a stronger America in the future.
So I think this is Faith Arlene. She was able to figure out how to put a question in the Q&A box.
Nice.
So if anyone else figures that out, let us know. But she didn't share, or they didn't share it on here. But the question is, you already kind of...
Wait, she gets a whistle for that. Good job. Who was it? Faith?
Yeah, it goes
it's
out of...
funny that her name is Faith, right?
Thoughts on paganism, but can you be pagan and atheist?
Yes. I just talked about, I have atheist friends who love enjoying pagan tradition, pagan rituals, pagan imagery. It's fun. It's fascinating stuff to think about Loki and Thor and Odin and all the great stories that go with that. So yeah, you can absolutely be a pagan and an atheist, just like most of my Jewish friends are atheists. They want to be cultural Jews. They enjoy their heritage. They love their history. They want to maintain their traditions, but they don't believe in the woo and the magic and the sky daddy and all the unprovable bullshit that clearly doesn't exist.
Okay, and now I can't get the question to go away. So we'll see if
I'm stuck with it, man.
Yeah, it won't go off the screen. So we'll go with that's it right there. Appreciate the kind word. You got some appreciations. I don't know if it's how do we get it off? I think
I want to while you're looking for that, I want to talk about the trolls who are on the page trying to insist that there's evidence for Jesus is really embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. Historians who traditionally have assumed that Jesus existed are Christian historians and Jewish historians with a dog in the fight, right? They got an axe to grind. They have what we call, they're looking for confirmation bias. They are already assuming that Jesus existed. And since we've all been indoctrinated to the idea that he did, most of those historians go in with that bias. There's no way to get around that. And the fact is that if you take a look at actual objective historians, more and more starting to actually look for the real evidence of Christ, they're not there. And again, I'm not just talking out my ass. I've talked to Richard Carrier. I interviewed Acharya S. before she died prematurely on us, and we miss her. She was a brilliant mind. In her last book, exposed Moses as a myth. Dr. Robert Price. Bart Ehrman believes that Jesus existed, but denies his God status. What am I trying to say? He denies the fact that he was supernatural in any kind of way. So I'm not an expert, but I am a little bit studied in the area. And the fact is that the scant evidence of Jesus' existence has largely been debunked. There's no direct evidence, and the references, from Pliny and Josephus and all this other shit, they're pretty easy to blast holes in. The fact is that even I think the Josephus thing was like 7 years after Jesus supposedly died. Well, nobody wrote about him while he was alive. Nobody, and nobody finds that suspect. To me, that's just not using your brain. Again, Jesus maybe existed, but it's highly unlikely, and he certainly didn't exist as the Son of God. The fact is that sacrificing your firstborn son is an ancient theme. Losing your firstborn son to the ancient world was the worst thing that could happen to anybody. The Bible is full of examples of losing your firstborn son, because that is the most horrible thing that you could possibly have happen to you. When Abraham is asked to sacrifice his son, God is asking him to do the worst thing that any storyteller can possibly think of. It's worse than losing your own life. A farmer in the old days, worse than losing your own life would be to lose your firstborn son, period. So that's why the Bible uses that as an example of what a horrible thing could happen. The plagues on Egypt, the killing of the firstborn son. Again, there's more than those two, I'm sure, in the Bible. So when it comes around to, what could the loving God of the New Testament do to prove his love for us, the greatest thing that he could do is sacrifice his firstborn son, because that was what would it be today? You give up your iPhone? I don't know what could be a similar horrible circumstance that could happen to you, but that's why God sacrificed his only son. It's a story that illustrates that God was willing to do the worst thing that anyone can consider happening to them. He was willing to do that to himself. That's how that story evolved, and it's as simple as that. It's just if you read the whole Bible, it's real obvious that losing your firstborn son is a common theme, because it's one of the scariest things that could happen to you, besides going to hell, where it could never get cool, because they all lived in a desert, you see. These Mideast sacred stories, the historians who believe that those myths are real, they call them Mideast sacred stories. It's a way of framing them without saying that they're actual myths, which we know that they are. They're just myths that people still believe today, whereas the Greek myths and the pagan myths have largely been dismissed as bunk. There's no more evidence or less evidence for Jesus than there is for all of those other stories, really. And I lost my train of thought. But again, the Bible describes the loss of the firstborn son as the worst thing that could possibly happen. So God's love is so great for us that he gave up his firstborn son. And the whole thing is stupid, because he could just make 10 more sons, and he could reverse time and make those his firstborn sons. The illogic of it all defies description, honestly.
How do you feel about school events such as band performances held at churches?
I don't have any problem with. Places need a venue, and a lot of times churches are the best place. They have nice auditoriums and good sound systems, and as long as the church doesn't use the opportunity to proselytize to the people who were in it at the time, and as long as the church is willing to rent that space to other groups too, I don't really have a problem with that, not necessarily. We vote in a church, and that's not really great, but it's a nice place to stand and wait in line to vote. It's comfortable. Some of these huge mega churches have like coffee shops in them where you can get yourself a nice latte while you're waiting in line and be warm, instead of going down to a rickety public park building and voting. So there's been problems with that. I know some people have voted in churches and they hang Jesus over the voting booth, looking at you like this. You're trying to vote, and we better not vote against Jesus. He's right there. It's that kind of bullshit. And FFRF has helped people, particularly in Brown Deer, Wisconsin, get rid of overt proselytizing when the church ended up being a voting place. But as long as they do it right, I don't really have a problem with that.
Someone wanted to know about the team and who runs the app, and is it about the collaborations.
Our team?
Yeah, basically about our team. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a team of a handful of people who help out. I'm not really sure that they want their names necessarily exposed like I do. I'm the front man because A, that's what I do, and B, I don't give a shit who knows I'm an atheist, and if anyone asks me about it, I'll shove it right up their ass. So that's why I'm the front guy. But we do have a talented team of people who help me write and run the social media, and
maybe it's related to the comments. Maybe mention that not all the comments can be kind of a mix of people.
Oh yeah, I suppose. And I started putting finally. And thank you, everybody. Thank you for the comments. The trolls, too. Thank you for the comments. All you're doing is driving up our viewership and making some really, really funny comment threads. But there may be more than one of us who answer those comments, and we'll try to put an initial after it, and that initial might be J or N or R at this point. And if it's R, you'll know it's me because I'm Rob. And that way, if there's two comments under the same that seem to be non sequiturs or a little bit contradictory, it's just because they come from a different person.
So Faith definitely deserves a whistle blow for. I'll explain after you blow it. So go ahead.
Well, Faith.
So for those of you asking questions, Faith says that there is a question mark next to the chat box. If you click that, then the question goes into our question box, and we can actually answer them instead of as a comment. So if you have a question, click the question mark next to the chat box to ask a question. And we're going to try to do most of those. Actually, we'll do this one, and then I'll go to that box. Even if Jesus did live, does that... it does not make him God.
Of course. I think a lot of people in my position feel like Jesus probably lived as an ascetic, wandering preacher. Like a lot of people, that was a common vocation in the day, especially if you were somewhat touched in the head, like they say. Insane people were often thought in the ancient world to be touched by God in a special way, and were very often completely left alone, if not actually revered and listened to, because the ramblings that came out of their mouths, people were afraid that if that was coming from God, you don't want to piss that person off. So I think the wandering ascetic was a common archetype for preachers in the Middle East and in Palestine in the day. So, the fact that, Yeshua of Nazareth may have existed as a minor preacher and then was later blown up into a mythological superhero figure is certainly possible. I don't happen to think that he happened to live at all after what I've learned from studying with some of these new scholars who are promoting Christ myth theory. But that doesn't mean that I'm right about that. There's just no way for any of us to know.
So Mickey makes a point that the comment limit too short in the queue box. I would still prefer if you do it through the queue because it's easier. If you want it for sure answered, do that, and just try to make it, shorter in like a sentence.
That is a shortcoming, I guess, but it's easier for us to actually get to them and get through them if you put them in that box.
Okay. Now the bunch. I see. Oh, weird. Let me go back. Okay. Do you feel Christianity is a poison to the earth?
I feel most religion these days is a poison to the earth. And I'll say again, it's really fundamental religion that's poisonous to the earth. It's time for human beings to get past unsustainable faith systems and use their brains and their talents to solve human problems here on earth. And live for today, live for the betterment of man, live for becoming the best person that you can be and solving the problems of society with actual solutions. And nothing's more frustrating than someone who just prays. You have a hurricane, so I'll pray for you. What the hell is that going to do? Praying for me. Get off your ass and do something about it. Religion has helped a lot of people, but religion in general, especially the way it's evolving, as it dies, quite clearly, is that the fundamentalist groups are the ones who hang on the tightest. And then Christianity comes to look like it's all evangelical freaks who understand, that if they don't spread the word, the religion will die faster, which is why they go to poor countries and convince desperate people that there's a better way. You're not going to get anywhere doing missionary work in Sweden, where they've already got, a social utopia and some of the happiest people in the world. You're going to get somewhere in Africa or in South America with people who have nothing and no bridges, and you can do good works and then have them come to church on Sunday. That's why missionaries exist, is for the benefit of the religion and its longevity, not really for the benefit of the person being, missionaryized to. Fundamental religion is dying. It will die. Not in our lifetimes, it'll go away, but it will go away, and the statistics are there. You can't argue with the numbers. We have in America probably 25 to 28% of people who don't care about religion. They might not say they're atheists, but they're just not interested in organized religion anymore. People are sick of the hate. People all know homosexuals, and they all know transgender people, and they all know people from minority religions who aren't Christians, and they don't want to lose their friends because, your redneck dad says that only white Christian Americans are valid human beings on the earth. And Islam is the same way. I mean, we're flying planes into buildings, for God's sake, and telling the disenfranchised youth of those countries that they'll have a reward in heaven when they do this. I mean, you're giving people false hope and making them do unthinkable things, at the expense of their minds and of the rest of our safety. So yeah, absolutely, religion is a poison on the planet and needs to fucking die.
So our next question comes from the amazing atheist Mama Bear we know through TikTok. She says, Rob, where were you indoctrinated as a young child?
I was indoctrinated as a young child, and again, I was lucky. I was indoctrinated into churches that didn't take the Bible literally. We were Congregationalists in Connecticut, and those mainline Protestant sects long ago, in the time of the founders, had given up on biblical literalism. Anybody with any education at all, and let me tell you, Thomas Jefferson, for all his faults, and Ben Franklin and John Adams were more highly educated and intelligent than virtually any evangelical Christian today, period. We have lost the elegance of an educated society that founded this country. I was raised in one of those churches. I'm pretty sure there was an atheist in the back of every church that I went to. Church was more of a social Sunday gathering is what you did. You saw your friends. You got a nice homily from the minister. And, hopefully you took something away from it that made you maybe live a better life. But I was definitely indoctrinated. My mother's a born-again believer. And when the clock started, the pendulum started swinging more towards fundamentalism after the Reagan era, a lot of those churches went more evangelical, went more hardcore, went more biblical literalist, because they were losing the people like me who were raised, to believe that Jesus was real and that the Bible was maybe not the literal word of God, but at least inspired by God, to the writers. So yeah, I was indoctrinated, but I wasn't indoctrinated into a hardcore religion that didn't allow me to think outside the box. That, coupled with my native intelligence, allowed me to break out of it fairly easily. And I'm not bragging on myself. I'm a smart guy, but there's a lot smarter people than me. But the fact is that I was smart enough to get over that indoctrination, and some people just aren't, or they've been indoctrinated into such a horrible cult-like atmosphere, such a fear and guilt and oppressive system that they just can't. They're crippled emotionally, and I saw that. And part of why I started down this road is because I saw people, and they're not. It wasn't just from charismatic churches. It was Catholics. Catholics a lot of times are crippled by guilt and fear to the point where they can't leave home. The last kid in the Catholic family gets stuck taking care of mom because they're so guilty. You can't go out and have a good time because you feel like you're sinning against Jesus. A lot of these people never grow up to have a normal sex life because they just are so guilty about it. It breaks psychologies. It really does. And I was unwilling to put up with that. When I saw friends of mine who had brothers and sisters who that happened to, I decided sooner or later that I was going to dedicate myself to ending that kind of psychological oppression, honestly.
So I'm going to try something different. So we are running short on time. We have a lot of questions. Do you want to try a lightning round of just questions at you?
Yeah, I'll try anything once.
Okay.
My friend.
So I was going to say you should get the timer out, but I think we could do this without the timer. Okay, so Octavius wants to know opinion on Pascal wager.
Pascal's wager is what?
It's the one where you believe in God because it's better than... It's like basically...
Oh, it's like... Insurance.
Yeah, basically insurance.
Yeah, no, that's bullshit. That's the weakest faith system there is.
How to handle those who try to convert you. Let me bring that up there.
Nobody tries to convert me. Who tries to convert me? If they come to the door, I invite them in and I just give them crap until they leave crying.
What would you tell to somebody else?
What would I tell to somebody else about what?
If someone's trying to convert them.
If someone's trying to convert them, I tell them to use their minds and don't just believe what somebody else tells you because they think it's true.
Okay. Why do people believe in religion?
because they've been indoctrinated mostly, or they are just not interested in actually looking for the truth.
Here's one from Mallory. Do you think religion should be taught to kids?
Yes, I think all religion and all philosophy should be taught to kids at a very early age, earlier than their parents think they should be. And in that way, and you'd be amazed what they actually learn. They will be able to make their own decision when they're of an age when they can compare all those religions. But no, children should not be simply taught one religion. I think children should be taught world religion and world philosophy as early as 2 and 3 years old.
Tips for raising kids with no exposure to religion.
It's tough. I did it with my older daughter. I made the mistake of sort of indoctrinating her into atheism and realized that was not really any better than indoctrinating them into religion. And I ended up getting backlash from her when she decided that she wasn't going to listen to what Dad said anymore. So my younger kids, I tried to... And the public school did that work for me and started me on this path.
How would you debate God's divine plan argument? Which I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know. If God has a divine plan, then why pray? I guess that's what I would say. If God has a divine plan, then just live your life and let His divine plan happen. Why would you have any input in it then?
And you wouldn't have to believe because God made that plan.
You wouldn't have to believe. The plan is in place, and He's not going to change it for your dumb human ass. He's a God.
You think we're only living being? Do you think we're the only living beings in the universe?
No.
Okay. Are there LGBTQ people in the Bible?
Almost certainly. Jesus hung out with 12 dudes. Give a fucking break.
And that's it. Do you have anything that you'd like to...
I don't. I'm getting laryngitis here. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Look for the podcast soon, and more videos to drop any day on TikTok. Love you all.